Hi, welcome to the 5 pillars of reading. Today we're going to focus on that first pillar, phonological and phonemic awareness. So our plan today is to share with you the important things you need to understand about reading acquisition. We're going to talk about the 5 pillars of reading. We're going to define phonological and phonemic awareness for you, share a scope and sequence of skills with you, talk a little bit about assessment, and then share some instructional strategies with you so that you can be implementing phonological and phonemic awareness in your classroom. And we'll talk about resources as well. So what we need to understand about reading acquisition. This is really important. There's been some very amazing research done on the acquisition of reading, and the most robust research has been compiled in this simple view of reading, in this graphic here. And really what it showed was that students need 2 things in place, solidly in place, to have skilled reading. They need decoding and language comprehension, and both are equally important. So when we're thinking about decoding, that would include things like concepts of print, phonological awareness, which we're going to talk about today, phonics, morphology, and orthographic mapping. And we're going to talk about those last 3 points on our next learning series video. But students also need language comprehension. Decoding is one piece of the equation. So with language comprehension, students need to have that background knowledge, they need appropriate vocabulary, they need grammatical understanding, and then of course they need understanding of strategies like inferencing and predicting. And when students have those 2 things in place, they have fluent reading and they have skilled reading. So the 5 pillars of reading include phonemic awareness, phonics instruction, fluency instruction, vocabulary instruction, and comprehension instruction. And this really helps support our students with that simple view of reading, making sure that they have that decoding and language comprehension pieces in place to make them skilled readers. The focus of our session today is on phonemic awareness, and then in our upcoming sessions we will talk about the rest of those pillars, so you really have a good handle on these and reading instruction in general. So what is phonological awareness? What phonological awareness is it's really that general appreciation of how language can be divided into its components. So if you look under this umbrella of phonological awareness, you will see a number of skills. And we start with rhyming, okay? And then we want students to understand bigger linguistic units like words make up sentences, that those words can be broken up into syllables, and those words can also be seen with their onset sound and their rhyme, so sort of that word family. We call that onset rhyme. But a subcategory under phonological awareness is phonemic awareness, and we have a little arrow pointing to that there under that umbrella. And phonemes are the smallest unit of sound. And phonemic awareness is really a student's ability to be able to isolate individual phonemes, blend phonemes together to read words, segment phonemes, so pull those sounds apart, and then add, delete, and substitute phonemes in various words. And those are more complex skills, and we're going to dive into that a little bit more momentarily. But when we work on these skills, we don't attach print, okay? We want kids to do this orally, so those lessons are auditory. And the reason why is because our brains are hardwired for speech and not print. So helping kids hear it first really supports their meaning, them understanding that print more. So think about it like this: sound before symbol. Okay. So also on this, I think it's important to really understand sort of continuum of these skills. So the less complex skills compared to the more complex skills. And I sort of referred to this earlier, but really the less complex are things like rhyming and alliteration, understanding that words make up a sentence, understanding syllables, and then those onset rhymes. Because when we break things down into an onset and rhyme, we can blend and segment, which helps with that decoding piece when we go to read. The most complex of these phonological awareness skills is phonemic awareness, right? Where we're taking those individual phonemes, those individual sounds, and being able to manipulate them. So it's good to think about these things because often we ask kids to sound words out, right? We just say, okay, break that word up into its sound, act. When really they might not understand, rhyming yet, or that, sentences are made up of words. So we might need to backtrack a little bit to work on some of those skills.
The skills related to the development of phonological awareness in French move from simple to more complex as well. Students should first be able to identify and produce words that rhyme, for example, manteau et chapeau. Next, students should be able to identify the common initial sounds, for example, chat et chien. The more complex skills, such as determining the number of words heard in a sentence versus the number of syllables heard in a word, are explored as well. For example, il y a combien de mots dans la phrase, le ballon est bleu, et combien de syllabes dans le mot chapeau. Certain skills will develop before others. For example, the ability to decode a word in syllables comes before the ability to decode the phonemes. It is thus important that second language learners participate in a variety of classroom activities in order to develop a strong phonological awareness of the 36 French sounds. It is very important to carefully select the words that will be the focus of the phonological awareness activities for the second language learner. The words chosen should be common words, thematic words worked on in class, or word cognates, words in French that you may recognize because they are commonly used in the English language.
So how does phonological awareness support our students as readers? So this is an excellent graphic that demonstrates the connection between the two pieces. So when students are working on those early phonological awareness skills, like learning rhyme, syllables, and that first sound awareness, that helps them make the connection to individual letters and their corresponding sounds. So think about it like one-to-one correspondence. So I understand that A says A or A. And then when we move to that, the little bit more advanced skills, like blending and segmenting phonemes, that helps students start to phonetically decode words as they read them. Okay? So now I understand that cat makes cat. When I see it in print, I'm using those same skills to decode that word. When I'm working on advanced phonemic awareness skills, so those were the more complex skills of being able to manipulate and substitute, delete, and add phonemes to words, that's really helping me read things more automatically and quickly. Okay, so it helps to build that automaticity. So it's good to think about when students acquire these skills. Now, we know that kids develop at different rates, and that's completely fine and okay, but generally speaking, before kids come to kinder and beginning of kindergarten, kids are learning those early phonological awareness skills. So rhyme, knowing that words make up sentences, they might understand some word parts in onset rhyme, but certainly we're working on those very explicitly in kinder and grade 1. Through kinder, kind of probably end of kinder into grade 1, they're working on blending and segmenting those phonemes. And then as we move on from there, like end of grade 1 and on, they're working on adding, deleting, substituting, and manipulating those individual phonemes to build that automatic word reading. So this is such a great point, and that is this. If a child memorizes 10 words, then that's what they can read. They can read those 10 words. But if a child memorizes 10 sounds, they can read 353 sound words, over 4,000 four-sound words, and over 21,000 five-sound words. So it really does reinforce that point that teaching students sound is critical to their reading acquisition. And the research is there to support this. The two best predictors of early reading success are alphabet recognition and phonemic awareness. And at least 80% of all poor readers are estimated to demonstrate a weakness in phonological awareness and or phonological memory. So it's very critical to work on these skills.
Research shows that phonics is an essential part of learning a second language. This needs to be done explicitly and systematically, as it is in the first language. We cannot assume that our students will automatically transfer the learning from the second language to the first or vice versa. We need to build these bridges between the two languages by making the connections very obvious. This does not mean that we need to repeat the teaching in each language, but we need to help the students make those connections by making them obvious. For example, I might say, remember in French when we did da 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 da? Well, in English, we're going to do the same thing. Let's try.
So we thought we are going to speak to phonics in the next learning series video, but we thought it would be important to make that distinction for you now and share the difference between phonemic awareness and phonics. With phonemic awareness, we're doing all of those lessons orally with our students. With phonics instruction, this is where we show the relationship between those sounds and the written letters. So we're attaching print. So this is the activities we do around making words, and we're attaching all the print and showing students the different letters that represent those sounds. And we're going to give you lots of examples of how to bring that to life in your classrooms in our next learning series video, but we just wanted to make that distinction for you today. So we've attached here, and we are sharing the slides with your administrators, so you will have access to all of the links on this this slide deck, and there's a scope and sequence of phonics skills here attached for you. We really strongly recommend that you print this off for your reference, because it does have that scope and sequence of skills in phonics, starting with those phonological and phonemic awareness skills, so that pre-alphabetic principle, right? So rhyming, syllables, and things like that. And then we dive into that letter recognition and naming. And then we dive into more complex phonemic awareness skills, and then we get into those initial consonants, and then short vowel sounds, and then we get into digraphs. So by printing this off, you will see that continuum of skills. And we really feel, even though this scope and sequence is geared toward the K through 3 classroom, we know that our kids from K to 6 can fall anywhere on this continuum of skills. It's important for you to know that as a teacher, so that you can target your instruction according to what your students need. So let's stop here for a few minutes and allow you to have a professional conversation with your colleagues. So we've included a couple of questions to sort of as a springboard for your discussion that we would like you to discuss. The first one is, now that you've heard a bit of information from us, why is the instruction of phonological awareness so important for children? So please take some time to discuss that question, and then after you're done that, what are you currently doing to support this instruction in your classroom? So please pause here and rejoin when you're finished. Okay, we hope you had a great professional conversation there. Let's talk a little bit about assessment. So the first thing to think about is, where are students supposed to be? So if I teach grade 4, do I know what I'm looking for with my readers? So that's why we put together this reading continuum for your easy reference last year. The link is here to it on this slide deck, which you will have access to. And I would recommend, again, printing this off, because it really does show behaviors that we would typically expect to see at various points on the continuum, and sort of that correlation to the grade. So what behaviors would we expect with our emergent readers, and then so on up the continuum. And so again, looking at these behaviors on a continuum is critical, because even if you teach grade 6, you still have students that are working on sometimes early reading behaviors. And when you know where they are on this continuum, you can support their learning to help move them forward.
Students in second language programs are not blank slates. They come to school with a knowledge of literacy. The process of learning a new language is not dissimilar to learning another language. Students need to learn vocabulary, phonological components, fluency, and comprehension. Our French language learners need time and explicit instruction to develop each one of the processes in the continuum of reading. Our continuum of learning was created by taking into account the time it takes to learn a new language. It looks at the 5 pillars of reading through each stage of reading development as well, and links to the outcomes found in the FLA program of studies. The continuum de lecture is found on the French immersion SharePoint, and the infographic is embedded with several videos and charts to help explain each component.
We also have the reading screeners that our grade 2 and 3 teachers have completed so far. There's the lens, which has students identifying letter names and then sounds to both letter names and letter combinations. And no matter what, even though this assessment is geared towards our K and 1 and 2 learners, you might find use for this in older grades if you have students that cannot read non-words, for example. So the other assessment that you see there is the Castles and Coulthard 3 test, which we're calling the CC3. And that assessment has students reading regular words, irregular words, and non-words. And again, that tells us what words kids have sort of as sight words, but then with those non-words, it tells us how well students can take the phonemes that they know and blend them together to phonetically decode. So when your students struggle with that piece, then we need to maybe go back and give them the lens so we can see, okay, what letter combinations do they not have in place that I could target my instruction towards? Okay, and again, these are a snapshot and can share with us if a student is at risk for reading difficulties.
So again, the NSLR and CC3 in French can help determine if a student is at risk for reading difficulties, and it can also be used at different grade levels as well. On this slide, I've included a link to our cheat sheet because I know it can get confusing with all the English screeners and the French screeners happening at different times. So you will need to be very familiar with the NSLR and the CC3 and what times they're administered. Please make sure to verify which cards you should be using for each grade level.
For grade 4 through 6 students, they're doing the T-series screeners, and there's a link on this slide with some information, tutorials, and that kind of thing on the screeners. But the 3 of them include the test of silent word reading fluency. That is where the kids see a string of letters that they need to put a line in between each word that they see. This assessment really just tells us how quickly and accurately can students decode. The next screener is that test of word reading efficiency. This is a screener in which they look at some real words and then non-words, and again that shows us what words they have as sight words and how well they can phonetically decode by pushing those phonemes together to read non-words. And then the comprehension assessment, that last one, the TOSREC, the test of silent reading efficiency and comprehension. Each grade has its own kit, and the kids read a series of statements and have to say whether they're answer them with a yes or no answer. And that, again, gives us a snapshot on how good their comprehension is.
Students in the French immersion schools still need to complete the T-series screeners in English. However, this series is not available in French, so we will be collecting the GB Plus at the end of January and May. You will be using the blue kit. GB Plus running records give us information on the student accuracy, fluency, and comprehension, and it can be used throughout the year as well.
Okay, so let's talk about our classroom instruction. What can this, phonological awareness and phonemic awareness instruction look like for you? So, just a reminder of what components are included under that umbrella of phonological awareness, and to note that students in grade K through 2 will need to work on phonological awareness skills daily. This is critical for them. In grades 3 to 6, students who do not have these skills in place will need further assessments and targeted support. And certainly you are still building in some of those phonological awareness pieces in organic ways. So how do we do this in K through 2? So as most of you know by now, we have bought the Haggerty resource for all kindergarten, grade 1, and grade 2 teachers. Kindergarten students will be using that purple pre-K resource. Our grade 1 students are using the kindergarten or blue resource, and our grade 2 and up students are using that yellow book, which is the primary resource. There's a link on this slide deck that links you to the Haggerty site, and if you create an account, which is free, you can go in and watch some videos in action. We also have some training for this that we're running live on Tuesday, October 26th. And then once, if this is past, if you're watching this video after that date, then you can go to our SharePoint site and the video will be there.
French immersion teachers now have access to Appili. This resource teaches through a syllabic method. The learning process begins with the vowels, long consonants, whose sounds can be extended, and then short consonants that snap. The lessons present several graphemes at the same time at the beginning of the progression, which makes it possible to approach more complex sounds rather quickly. La pratique phonémique, this resource is carefully organized in a sequence of phonemic tasks clustered around 5 key skills: identifier, fusionner, segmenter, enlever, et substituer. With these skills, students will both learn and practice core phonemic awareness tasks necessary for reading and spelling. The focus of the instruction is on the key skills that are the biggest predictors of successful reading and writing to give teachers the biggest return on investment. This resource is the closest version to Haggerty that is available in French right now.
Okay, so we have done some digging and found some excellent videos on a site called Reading Rockets, which is one of our favorites, to sort of demonstrate some ways you can bring phonemic awareness to life in your classroom. So we'll take a look at a couple. They're not more than a few minutes long, but we think these are good examples of how you can do this in your own class.
Today, we're going to learn about rhyming words. A rhyming word are words that sound the same. For example, duck and buck.
Buck.
Buck. And dog and
Buck.
frog. Yes. Today's activity looks like this. So, what we're going to do is we're going to place the card in the center of your group, and we will be matching. We are going to be rhyming what you have in your hand to the mat that is on the floor in the center of your group. What is this a picture of? Phone. What is this a picture of? Boat. And this one is a seashell. A sea, like the beach. Kenji, can you tell me what picture here sounds the same as key? Which one here sounds like key? Very nice. So children, key and bee sound the same, yes?
Yeah.
Yes, very nice. So we're going to put it on top of this. Okay? So that's how we're going to do the activities. Okay, now it's your turn. Socks, cloth, very nice. And very nice dog. And what is this a picture of?
Can.
What is this a picture of?
Okay, so now let's talk syllables. We'll show you a video of a teacher demonstrating syllable work in her classroom, but there's also a visual here to support your instruction with syllables. So you can just see the various points you could touch on your arm to show kids the various syllables in words.
Kendall got out her very special tambourine. And do you know what I use my tambourine for? I use it to count out the beats I hear in names. Listen to how I count the beats in my name. Miss, Sis, Ken, go. I hear 4 beats in my name. If we go around the circle, let's see how many beats you have in your name. Maya, can you count the beats in your name?
Maya.
Maya, how many beats did you hear in your name? 2. You heard 2 beats in your name. Maya. Aaron, how many beats did you hear in your name? 2 beats in your name. Can you pass it to Jordan, please? Jordan, how many beats did you hear in your name? 2 beats in your name. Vivian, how many beats did you hear in your name? 3. Okay, John, how many beats do you hear in your name? How many beats did you have? 1. Great job.
Now let's take a look at a teacher teaching blending phonemes to her students.
How many of you remember how to play push that sound? Great. You should have your blue, your red, and your blue square in front of you because we're going to start out with 3-letter words. I'm going to show you how to do one on the board. If I say these sounds, h, t, what word did I make? Hot. Good. That's how you're going to push your sounds. When you hear my sound, pull your sound down and say the word fast. The first word I say is Sam. Sam. Who has a sentence with Sam? Courtney?
Did you see Sam walk across the street?
Great. Next word. Pot. The pot is boiling over. Now that we've done a 3-sound word, we're going to do a 4-sound word. You should have a blue, and a red for our vowel, and the white is our final sound. So check yourself to see if you have a blue for the beginning sound, a blue for the next sound, because these are going to have some blends. Let's try it again. Push it up. Stick. Very good. Let's move on to the next 4 sound word. Stat. Did you hear it? Stuff. Next word. G. The frog jumped over the lily pad. Great job. Give yourself a pat on the back.
Now let's look at a teacher working with a student on segmenting sounds.
Okay, so we're going to play a game that helps you hear all the sounds in the word. So you're going to use the cars to help you sound out the word. So like if we did the word mop, you would go ah. So you might not need all the cars. So you do the word mop, sound it out one sound at a time. Ah. Fantastic. Okay, let's try a different one. You sound out the word tap. Tap. Okay, great. Let's put all the cars back. Okay, I'm going to show you one with 4 sounds. It'll be the word stop. Okay, I want you to sound out the word stop. Fantastic. Okay, I'll give you a hard word with 4 sounds. Ready? It's going to be the word past. Ooh, that's such a hard one. Okay, let's do that one together. Ready? Great. Okay, now you do past. Fantastic. Okay, ready to sound out the word fast? Okay, great. Let's do one more. Great. Perfect. You did a great job.
So with all of these videos, these are just little examples of things that you can do to bring that phonological and phonemic awareness work into your classroom. But of course, they don't have to be done in this way. So even with the segmenting video where that teacher is working with the cars with that student, you could certainly do segmenting of sounds as kids are lining up waiting to go to music or gym, and they have to jump for each sound in the word mop or cat. So there's different ways that you can integrate these skills into transitional periods in your classroom. These are just a couple of ideas to sort of inspire you. Okay, so let's think about our students in grades 3 through 6. When working with these students, we need to understand what skills they have in place and what skills they need to still work on with phonological and phonemic awareness. If you have children in grades 3 through 6 that still cannot decode words, then we know they need work on phonemic awareness. And it's important to do the lens screener on them or another assessment that tells you what letters and sounds they have in place and still need to work on, so you can target that, okay? You can target your instruction during small group work or guided reading groups, or if you do have a bigger group of kids that still need to work on certain skills, you can do that. A couple of good resources to help support that instruction one of them is Equipped for Reading Success, which is by David Kilpatrick. He's in this resource, the book looks like this. He has these 1-minute drills, and these are geared towards our 3 to 6 students, and they help kids work on phonological awareness and phonics skills. Another great resource that is available digitally, but of course you deliver it in person. The kids aren't working on the computer with this. These lessons are just digital, is West Virginia Phonics. The link is here on this slide deck for you to access, and all the skills are broken down with the corresponding lessons, right? So it starts with skill 1 would be phonological awareness exclusively, and the knowing of our initial consonants. Skill 2 is taking those that knowledge of our initial consonants and working with them in CVC patterns, okay? You click on each lesson, and it's got A detailed lesson with a little bit of phonological awareness work built into it, and then some decodable text for the students to practice. This is a very, very worthwhile resource to have a look at.
For French immersion teachers in upper elementary, consider using the resource La Pratique Phonemique Intensive to help fill in those gaps that may have occurred for your students as well. This resource offers a sequence of words and even a short script to use daily to develop each phonological awareness skill. If you are unsure of how or where to start with this with phonological awareness with your upper elementary students, this resource is a great place to start.
Another excellent site is the Florida Center for Reading Research. And many of you may have seen this or heard of this already because we've been talking about this for a few years. But this site has a list of here I'll just go into it so you can see it. It has a list of student-centered activities that are geared towards the various grades that you can click on. So maybe I'll just go into 2nd and 3rd grade to show you. And they have a list of activities that are connected to each pillar. And so if you're working on phonemic awareness, it has a bunch of games and activities that could be part of your literacy stations that help students work on these various skills. This is definitely worth exploring. Okay, we talked about assessment, but we really need to highlight for you the importance of monitoring progress along the learning journey. So as you're teaching these skills explicitly and systematically, are you checking in with your students to see how well they're attaining those skills? So through the games and activities you're doing, how are they working with those? Are they regularly reading decodable text? How is their practice with those? Are you doing some informal running records just as they're reading books of choice to see how they're working on those skills? It's important to give feedback and coaching along the way of this journey, obviously, and then document everything. That will help you plan your next steps with your instruction. So we want you to stop here and take another few minutes to discuss the following questions with your colleagues. So what further training might you need to support phonological awareness instruction in your classroom? And then are there any things you learned today that you might try to implement in your classroom when working on these skills? So we'll give you a few minutes to do that now. So thanks for joining us. We hope you are walking away today with some new ideas for what to do to bring phonological awareness and phonemic awareness instruction alive in your classrooms. And then if you have any other questions or you want to work with us a little bit, please reach out to your ELA or FLA consultant. The consultant team list is here for you as well to access.